the prior 2 entries in this series, I presented my top 20 games for the Sony PlayStation. They were picked from my personal history with the system, and the impact they had on me. In this final entry, I will close things out with my top 5 games for the Sony PlayStation. Castlevania: Symphony of the Night is one of the most influential games in the action platformer genre and a defining entry in the Castlevania series. Developed by Konami and led by Koji Igarashi, it introduced a revolutionary shift from the series' traditional linear structure to a non-linear, open-world format. Being designed interwoven with principles from another popular gaming franchise in Metroid, it gave rise to what is now known as the Metroidvania genre. A principle which involves one gigantic map world, which can be traversed fully only after the player has made particular progressions in the game. Symphony's lasting impact on gaming continues to influence the industry through titles released to this very day. Symphony of the Night boasts beautiful 2D sprite-based graphics, using detailed character and background art to create a gothic atmosphere. The game's world is set in Dracula's massive, interconnected castle, which is depicted with lush, intricate environments, from dark hallways to eerie crypts. The use of color and lighting design contributes heavily to the foreboding tone, while the character designs, including the elegant Alucard and grotesque enemies, reflect the horror fantasy aesthetic the series is known for. One of the most celebrated aspects of Symphony of the Night is its soundtrack. The music blends classical, rock, and electronic elements, with iconic tracks like Vampire Killer, Dracula's Castle, and Marble Gallery establishing a haunting, immersive atmosphere. The music enhances the exploration and combat, with different themes for each area of the castle and dynamic changes during boss fights. The sound effects are atmospheric and immersive, enhancing the gothic mood of the game. The ambient sounds of creaking doors and weapon sounds are perfectly crafted, providing a deep auditory presentation. The effects are subtle yet impactful, complementing the haunting soundtrack and contributing significantly to the overall ambience and tension. And the distinct sounds of enemies add variety to the encounters. During boss fights, dramatic audio cues heighten the stakes. Overall, the sound design enriches the gothic setting and immerses players in the eerie world, making it a key element of the game's haunting experience. The voice acting is often remembered for its campy, melodramatic delivery, which has become a beloved, albeit unintentionally humorous, aspect of the game. Lines are delivered with an over-the-top seriousness that adds an unintentional charm. The voice direction, while earnest, sometimes results in awkward or stilted performances, particularly with minor characters. While initially jarring, the campy tone has become a nostalgic part of the game's identity, contributing to its cult classic status. The voice acting, though imperfect, only enhances the game's unique atmosphere of its era, and endears it to fans. Symphony of the Night revolutionized the Castlevania series by adopting a non-linear, exploration-based design. Players control Alucard, Dracula's son, as he ventures through Dracula's castle to defeat his father. The game introduces RPG elements, with experience points, leveling up, and collecting new weapons and abilities that unlock previously inaccessible areas. The combat system is fluid, offering a variety of weapons and magical abilities, allowing the player to use a range of strategies to tackle enemies and bosses. The gradual acquisition of new powers like double jumping and transforming into a bat or mist enhances the sense of exploration and discovery, encouraging players to revisit areas in search of hidden secrets. Upon release, Symphony of the Night was not an immediate commercial hit but became a cult classic over time. It demonstrated that players were eager for deeper, more open-ended experiences and helped shift the landscape of 2D action games. The game's design inspired an entire subgenre of games, emphasizing exploration, progression, and interconnected world design. More recent titles like Hollow Knight and Dead Cells owe much to the formula pioneered by Symphony of the Night. In conclusion, Castlevania: Symphony of the Night is a landmark game that pushed boundaries in gameplay, atmosphere, and design. Its influence on the gaming industry is undeniable, and it remains a touchstone of 2D action gaming, continuing to captivate both longtime fans and new players alike. The game's blend of gothic art, unforgettable music, and innovative gameplay makes it a timeless classic. Silent Hill is a cornerstone of psychological horror in gaming, setting new standards for how video games could evoke fear and unease. Developed by Konami, this survival horror title introduced a dark and disturbing world that players could explore while solving puzzles, battling terrifying creatures, and uncovering a chilling story. The game stands out for its atmosphere, deeply unsettling tone, and unique approach to horror, becoming a landmark title that has influenced many games that followed. Released in 1999, Silent Hill was a bold departure from the more action-oriented survival horror games of its time, such as Resident Evil. While Resident Evil focused on resource management and combat in a more action-driven environment, Silent Hill took a different approach, blending psychological horror with eerie, atmospheric tension. The game was created by Konami's Team Silent, a group of talented developers who crafted a deeply immersive and terrifying experience, building the game's foundation on a rich narrative, haunting visuals, and nerve-rattling sound design. The graphics in Silent Hill are often cited as a key component in creating its unnerving atmosphere. The game uses pre-rendered backgrounds, which were common for PlayStation games at the time, but it distinguishes itself through the use of fog, darkness, and limited visibility. The thick fog and foggy environments serve not only to obscure vision but also to create an almost suffocating feeling, forcing players to navigate through the unknown. The town of Silent Hill itself is presented as an eerie, decaying place with a sense of abandonment. Buildings, streets, and alleyways are drenched in a sense of rot and isolation. The lack of vibrant color adds to the dull, monochrome atmosphere. The creatures and monsters players encounter are grotesque and nightmarish, drawn from disturbing imagery and designed to unsettle rather than scare through traditional means. The game's use of fog is often seen as a limitation imposed by the PlayStation hardware, but it is masterfully integrated to heighten the psychological tension, obscuring both the environment and enemies. The game's art style embraces a gritty, almost claustrophobic feel that is more focused on atmosphere than traditional horror visuals. The music and sound design in Silent Hill are among the most important elements contributing to its horror. Composed by Akira Yamaoka, the soundtrack blends industrial, ambient, and orchestral elements to create a haunting soundscape that complements the eerie visuals. The music is often subtle, with long stretches of silence that let the player's imagination take over, only interrupted by jarring, disturbing sounds that heighten the tension. One of the most iconic tracks, simply named Silent Hill, echoes the unsettling tone of the game, using discordant melodies to build a sense of dread. The game also utilizes sudden bursts of harsh, dissonant noise that increase in volume during encounters with monsters, keeping players on edge. This technique forces the player to be hyper-aware of their environment, as sudden noises, music changes, and disturbing sounds often signal danger. The game also uses environmental sounds such as creaking doors, dripping water, and distant growls to contribute to its unnerving atmosphere. Even when nothing is immediately visible, the soundtrack and sound effects ensure the player remains on edge. The voice acting in Silent Hill is infamous for its stilted, awkward delivery, but it has since become part of the game's charm. The performances, while not as polished as modern standards, are memorable for their offbeat, almost wooden nature. This odd quality actually works in the game's favor, enhancing the sense of unease and discomfort. The main character, Harry Mason, is voiced with a certain detachment that adds to his everyman nature, making him seem more like an ordinary person lost in an extraordinary situation. Similarly, other characters like Cheryl, Dahlia, and Sybil are voiced in ways that might not win any acting awards, but the peculiar delivery contributes to the eerie, dreamlike quality of the game. These stilted performances, combined with the game's overall unsettling tone, have helped Silent Hill stand out as a unique and memorable experience. Puzzles are an essential part of the gameplay, with players needing to solve a variety of environmental puzzles to progress. These puzzles are often tied to the narrative, revealing details about the town's dark secrets. While not overly complex, the puzzles add depth to the game and force players to explore the environment, further immersing them in the creepy world of Silent Hill. The game's multiple endings, determined by the player's actions and choices throughout the game, add replay value and encourage different playthroughs, increasing the game's replay value. Upon its release, Silent Hill received critical acclaim for its innovative approach to survival horror, and over time, it became a defining title of the genre. The game's use of atmospheric tension over jump scares has been studied and emulated in many other games, cementing Silent Hill as a pioneer in psychological horror. The fog and dark visuals, combined with the haunting soundtrack, have influenced countless horror games since then, making Silent Hill a template for how video games can deliver unsettling experiences. In conclusion, Silent Hill is a landmark in the survival horror genre, combining eerie graphics, an unforgettable soundtrack, and a deeply psychological narrative to create an immersive, terrifying game. Its stilted voice acting, creepy sound design, and gameplay mechanics all come together to form a game that remains a touchstone of horror in gaming. Even years after its release, Silent Hill continues to be a significant influence on the gaming hobby, making it a must-play for horror fans and an essential part of video game history. Final Fantasy VII is one of the most iconic and influential role-playing games in gaming history. Developed and published by then Squaresoft, it was a groundbreaking title that introduced a new era of 3D graphics and deep storytelling in the RPG genre. With memorable characters, an immersive world, and a compelling narrative, Final Fantasy VII helped shape the future of RPGs and left a lasting impact on the gaming hobby. Final Fantasy VII was developed during a time when RPGs were typically confined to 2D graphics, but Square took the ambitious step of moving to 3D. This was a bold move that, combined with its engaging story and deep gameplay mechanics, played a major role in the PlayStation's success. The game introduced a complex, emotionally charged plot that resonated with a wide audience, expanding the reach of RPGs beyond Japan to a global market. It set a new standard for narrative-driven games, using its platform to introduce cinematic cutscenes and deeper emotional storytelling that was rare in games at the time. The overworld features lower poly count, blocky 3D character models and environments, which, while getting the job done for the time, felt somewhat simplistic and angular, even by the standards of the era. In contrast, the combat system uses more detailed, pre-rendered backgrounds and refined character models, allowing for smoother animations and clearer expressions. This shift in graphical fidelity between exploration and battle highlights the game's technological limitations, while showcasing its artistic design and enhancing the dramatic moments in combat. The music of Final Fantasy VII is nothing short of iconic, and remains one of the most beloved soundtracks in video game history. The score perfectly complements the game's atmosphere, from the intense battle themes to the haunting, melancholic tunes that underscore the narrative's emotional beats. Tracks like One-Winged Angel, Genova, Still More Fighting, Tifa's theme, and The One Chosen by the Planet, among many others, have become synonymous with the game and even the franchise. The music also plays a key role in building the world. The peaceful themes of towns contrast sharply with the intense, driving music that plays during battles or climactic moments, amplifying the emotional highs and lows of the story. The sound effects are likewise effective at enhancing the game's atmosphere, with satisfying battle noises, environmental sounds, and dramatic effects that draw players deeper into the experience. From the roar of summoned creatures to the ambient noise of cities and towns, the sound design contributes significantly to the game's immersive world. The game's narrative explores deep themes such as identity, environmentalism, and sacrifice, and it does so through its rich character development and emotional beats. It features a turn-based battle system that is both accessible and strategic. The game uses the active time battle system, where characters take turns based on a constantly filling meter. This system creates a sense of urgency and fast-paced action, as the time does not pause for player input. Players can use a variety of magical spells, items, and special powerful attacks known as limit breaks, to fight off enemies. The materia system, which allows characters to equip magical orbs to gain abilities, was revolutionary, offering deep customization and strategy. The impact of Final Fantasy VII on the gaming industry cannot be overstated. It was one of the first RPGs to achieve mainstream success outside Japan, bringing the genre to a global audience. The game's cinematic cutscenes, emotional storytelling, and deep mechanics influenced countless RPGs that followed. It set the standard for narrative-driven games, proving that video games could tell complex, emotional stories on par with other forms of media. The game's characters, particularly Cloud and Sephiroth, have become symbols of the Final Fantasy franchise, appearing in sequels, spin-offs, crossovers, and various media adaptations. In conclusion, Final Fantasy VII is a landmark title that revolutionized the RPG genre. Its memorable characters, innovative gameplay, breathtaking music, and lasting impact on gaming as a whole, ensuring its place as one of the most important and beloved games of all time. Square Enix continues to butcher this game's legacy, with one of the absolute worst remakes ever released in the gaming hobby. Metal Gear Solid is one of the most influential games in the action-adventure genre, blending stealth mechanics, complex storytelling, and cinematic presentation. It brought the Metal Gear series into the 3D era and set new standards for narrative-driven gameplay, combining espionage with high-octane action and deep philosophical themes. The game was a landmark title that capitalized on the PlayStation's capabilities to deliver an immersive, cinematic experience. The game follows Solid Snake, a highly skilled operative, as he infiltrates a nuclear weapons disposal facility to stop Foxhound, a Black Ops military unit gone rogue. The game takes place in an open, 3D environment, and its innovative design integrated stealth mechanics into a traditionally action-driven genre, making it unique for its time. The presentation of Metal Gear Solid used a mixture of dynamic and static camera angles for certain environments, alongside fully rendered 3D models for characters and objects. The game created a highly detailed and immersive world, helping convey a sense of atmosphere, especially during tense moments. The character models, while relatively blocky by today's standards, were detailed enough to keep the player connected to and invested in the characters, which played a significant role in enhancing the story's delivery. The art style is distinctive, contributing to the sleek, almost futuristic look of the game's characters and environments. The dark, industrial environments and high-tech military settings gave the game a gritty, realistic tone, while the character designs emphasized the larger-than-life personalities of the key figures. The music in Metal Gear Solid is nothing short of iconic amongst fans of the franchise. The soundtrack varies from intense, action-packed themes to slower, more somber tracks during moments of reflection. The opening and closing credits theme, The Best Is Yet to Come, is an eerie and haunting song which encapsulates the game's emotional depth and eerie, tense tone. Music cues also heightened the urgency of missions or elevated key moments, creating an emotional connection with players. Sound effects, such as the clicking of Snake's footsteps or the sound of an approaching enemy, played a significant role in the gameplay. The use of environmental sounds, like alarms or radio chatter, is critical to setting the stage for tension, especially in stealth sections where players have to avoid detection. These soundscapes add to the immersion and keep players on edge. Metal Gear Solid was one of the first games to feature genuinely convincing, high-quality voice acting, which significantly enhanced the emotional depth of the story. Most notably including the now famous David Hayter, who portrays Solid Snake. The performances were delivered with the level of intensity and nuance typically reserved for Hollywood productions. Characters like Revolver Ocelot, Psycho Mantis, and the villainous Liquid Snake had distinct voices that added layers to their personalities, making them memorable. The high production values, including voice direction and recording quality, marked a major leap in the gaming industry and helped prove that video games could deliver cinematic storytelling on par with other forms of media. Unlike contemporary action games of the era, Snake is far better served by avoiding detection, using the environment to his advantage, and completing objectives through stealth and strategy. Players can masquerade as a cardboard box, crawl through air ducts, distract guards, or use non-lethal means to incapacitate enemies. The game also features a robust arsenal of weapons for combat scenarios, adding variety to gameplay. The game's creative alert system, where players must avoid being spotted by enemies, emphasized stealth and patience over brute force. The inclusion of boss battles, such as the mind-bending fight with Psycho Mantis, showcased the game's creativity, incorporating unique gameplay mechanics, like having to switch controller ports to outwit the boss, breaking the fourth wall in a way few games had at the time. Upon release, Metal Gear Solid was a commercial and critical success, selling millions of copies worldwide. It became one of the PlayStation's defining titles, influencing both action games and stealth games for years to come. Its cinematic approach to storytelling and gameplay, including character development and voice acting, set new standards in the industry. The game's mix of complex narrative, memorable characters, and innovative mechanics laid the groundwork for future Metal Gear titles, as well as other narrative-driven games like Uncharted and The Last of Us. Its lasting impact also sparked discussions on the role of video games as a storytelling medium, influencing how future games approached cinematic presentations and deeper narratives. In conclusion, Metal Gear Solid stands as a milestone in the gaming industry. Its combination of innovative gameplay, cinematic presentation, high-quality voice acting, and intricate storytelling made it a benchmark for future titles in the action-adventure genre. Its lasting influence can still be felt in modern games, making it a timeless classic in gaming history.
The self-destruct sequence has been activated. Repeat, the self-destruct sequence has been activated. This sequence may not be aborted. All employees proceed to the emergency car at the bottom platform.
Resident Evil 2 is often regarded as one of the greatest survival horror games ever made. Building on the foundations of the first entry in the series, Resident Evil 2 refined the formula, offering both enhanced gameplay and an expanded narrative, creating a lasting impact on the survival horror genre and gaming as a whole. The game is a striking example of how technology, story, and atmosphere can combine to create a timeless experience. The story is set in Raccoon City, where a viral outbreak has turned most of its population into terrifying zombies. Players can choose between two protagonists, Leon Kennedy, a rookie cop, and Claire Redfield, a college student searching for her brother Chris, who was last seen in the events of the first game. The overarching story follows their separate but intertwined paths as they attempt to escape the city, uncover the truth behind the outbreak, and face off against a new threat, the monstrous T-virus. The game's structure includes two different scenarios, Scenario A and Scenario B, which offer distinct but overlapping narratives. In Scenario A, players control one character, either Leon or Claire, while in Scenario B, they control the other character, with the events and puzzles of the game shifting slightly, depending on what the player did in Scenario A. This dual playthrough model encouraged replayability, offering players a deeper look into the story and gameplay mechanics. For its time, Resident Evil 2 featured cutting-edge visuals. The game utilized pre-rendered backgrounds with fixed camera angles, a hallmark of its predecessor, which helps create a cinematic, immersive atmosphere. The environments, ranging from the dark, dilapidated Raccoon City police station to the eerie underground laboratory, were richly detailed, reinforcing the game's tension and horror elements. The character models were meticulously crafted and animated, considering the technology of the time. The setting played a major role in building the game's dreadful presence. Dark corridors, claustrophobic hallways, and areas obscured by particular camera angles made exploration both nerve-wracking and rewarding, adding to the suspense of every corner you turned. The ambient sounds of the outdoors, and inside the police station, kept the atmosphere quite thick. The music in Resident Evil 2 is one of its defining features, contributing significantly to the game's ominous tone. A memorable and chilling soundtrack that emphasized the tension of the gameplay. The music ebbs and flows, with quiet, almost ambient tracks heightening the sense of dread during exploration, while sudden bursts of intense music accompany boss battles and moments of action. The sound effects are similarly integral to the atmosphere. The groans and growls of zombies, the creaking of doors, and the sound of footsteps all worked to immerse players in the terrifying world of Raccoon City. The silence in between these noises further heightens the feeling of isolation. Resident Evil 2 revolutionized the survival horror genre, improving on the foundations laid by its predecessor. It set the standard for 3D survival horror games, inspiring countless titles. The game's innovative approach to narrative, multiple scenarios, and branching storylines laid the groundwork for future games that focused on player choice and replayability. The game's atmospheric design and fixed camera angles influenced later horror titles, such as Silent Hill and Fatal Frame, which employed similar techniques to create tension and fear. It also solidified the Resident Evil franchise as a mainstay in gaming, pushing the series into mainstream popularity. Moreover, Resident Evil 2 helped push the technical boundaries of the PlayStation hardware, proving that a survival horror game could deliver cinematic storytelling, detailed environments, and intense gameplay all in one package. The game's success opened the door for other developers to take greater risks in creating more complex, narrative-driven games. Resident Evil 2 stands as one of the defining games of its era. Its brilliant combination of storytelling, atmosphere, music, and innovation made it a milestone in gaming. Its influence on future survival horror titles is undeniable, and its impact on gaming culture remains significant. As a sequel, it improved upon its predecessor in nearly every way, setting the stage for Resident Evil's continued dominance in the genre and inspiring the evolution of the survival horror genre for years to come. In closing, Resident Evil 2 is my #1 game on the system, though any game in the top 5 is arguable for this position, in my opinion.
Game over.